Hello, so my name is Carlos Ramirez, and I always wanted to make some sort of video regarding college apps. Um, and when I kind of went through the college app decision season, I forgot to record a lot of them. The only one I got was my ones for the Ivy League, but I didn't record like my Berkeley or UCLA or things like that. So I think it'd be best if I kind of made a video of my thoughts on the college app decision or the college app process and where I ended up and why I picked it over some of the other options I got. So for context, I come from a first gen family, so I'm first gen. My parents are immigrants. My major was computer science at most of these colleges. And I would say I had a pretty strong resume in terms of like when I applied. I went test optional, but I had like 10 APs and 10 duals with all A's. I finished like fifth in my class. I had pretty good ECs. I might like link it right here, but I had a nonprofit, or I had two actually, that got like 10K in funding. I did mites at MIT, and I did machine learning there. Um, I had like a really niche EC where I worked in my dad's repair shop, so that was pretty cool. And for the schools I applied to, I might put them up here or something like that. But I applied to Berkeley MET, which is where I currently am going. Um, UCLA, UCI, UCSD, UCR, um, San Jose State, Cal Poly Pomona, San Diego State, Northwestern, Vanderbilt, University of Illinois, Stanford, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, Penn, um, and other schools. And I guess for my decisions, I got waitlisted at a ton. I got waitlisted at Vanderbilt, UCLA, Princeton, Columbia, Carnegie Mellon SCS, U Michigan. Um, where else? That was the big ones. I got rejected from majority of them, like Stanford, Penn, um, UCI, which is kind of weird. I only got into three big ones. I got into Yale for computer science. I got into Northwestern for computer science, and I got into the MET program at Berkeley. I got in on the EECS track. So I didn't apply ED anywhere. I applied EA to USC, then I got deferred and rejected, and then I applied EA to University of Illinois, University of Washington, and NYU. I think, or I don't think I did. Um, for ED, I think like if I wanted to go to like an Ivy, or I was really dead set on one, or like let's say Northwestern, because the ED acceptance rate is significantly higher than like the RD acceptance rate. Because I get an RD test optional. That was like I was really surprised that I got in. Um, but I would, if you're a computer science student, or I guess like for me, I just kind of thought of it as like I didn't want to I kind of wanted to keep my options wide because I feel like I had a pretty strong chance at some good colleges. So, because for example, I was gonna ED to Johns Hopkins because it also had that kind of higher acceptance rate for ED rather than RD because I was really stressed after I got like deferred USC and rejected UIUC. But I ended up not doing that, and I'm really glad I did. I actually had like a mentor at one of my programs kind of tell me like, hey, that's okay not to move. So I think that was pretty good. Um, but those were my college decisions. I think, well, going on to why I decided where I went, which is Berkeley, there are a lot of factors that you should consider besides like late prestige. So for me, declining Yale to a lot of people sounded crazy. And it wasn't really a financial thing because I won some good outside scholarships that would have covered everything at Yale anyway. And same with Berkeley. Um, so I think it was more of a for me for computer science. The market is terrible right now, and the MET program offered pretty strong results in terms of recruiting compared to Yale, or from what I've seen. Something I recommend though is I didn't really look into Yale as much as I should have. I didn't like I didn't travel. I didn't like go to any of the tour days. I only went to Berkeley's because that was I'm in Southern California, so that was like a flight away. But Berkeley was pretty far. Um, so I would say like if you're a strong student, you're probably gonna get into some good schools. So I would really emphasize like really looking into the schools that you get into and really considering. Another thing I considered is like proximity to family. I'm kind of like a homebody, so I wanted to be close to home. Like for this semester, I went home like 4 times. It's a quick flight. I wouldn't have survived in the Yale cold, I don't think. Uh, and the computer science department was not that strong for me. A majority of people that got into Yale CS also got into like Princeton or Harvard CS, and they picked those other schools. For MET, it's a program that I didn't know about until one of my friends. I met someone from my area that got into MET, his older brother, and he picked it over Stanford. So I was like, wow, this program, it sounds pretty cool. Then I did some research and I saw the numbers and I was like, okay, because one of the things of it is it gives a guaranteed internship at a startup, your freshman year, and internships are like liquid gold, in the computer science world, especially at like a YC backed startup. So putting that on your resume is pretty crazy. Ironically, though, in the end, I'm actually not taking the internship. I'm going to be working at Amazon, in Seattle, because I won the Amazon Future Engineer Scholarship, which I also recommend applying if you're eligible. Take a look. Also, the Edison Scholarship that gives a basically guaranteed internship because they take priority on Edison scholars. And Edison's a great brand, so I really recommend it. Um, but I'd say it was really tempting to want to take Yale just to say like, oh, I got into Yale, right? And the difference, it might have been marginal, but I think you also have to consider, your fit in the school. I Berkeley's pretty big. It's like 40K kids compared to less than 40K. Yeah, I don't really know the number, but I kind of wanted a school where I can meet a variety of people, and variety comes in a large quantity, right? And I feel like that paid off. I met a lot of good friends, and I think the type of people that I met at Berkeley, I might not have met at Yale. So also it's another thing to consider, right? Or the environment academically. Berkeley EECS is known for being a little more rigorous than other undergraduate CS programs, and it's true. I had a really tough time my first semester. I mean, I made it out pretty decently, just A's and a couple B's. But I think putting yourself in that rigor, especially if you're a computer science student, is something that is absolutely necessary to stay competitive in the current market. Um, for college life, some tips I have. Um, Definitely think where you're going to be dorming. I didn't think too much about my dorm. I'm dorming in Foothill. It's okay. It's near my classes, but the walk there is long. Also, roommates. For me, I have a pretty cool roommate because I picked him prior, but some people got randoms. So I really think like you got to go on the don't be scared to go on the Instagram pages and find someone you think is chill, because I've heard like terrible roommate stories. So that's something to consider. Um, I guess in terms of my experiences in the MET program, it's been pretty cool. I'm in a club called Free Ventures. It's like a VC club. It's pretty fun that I learned about through MET. It's mostly METs. The community that I got in the program is pretty cool. It's like you have automatic like 50 friends because the class is so tight knit, and you get like we have our own study room in the new engineering center. So and no one's usually there because it's kind of far out, but it's near my dorm. So I study there a lot. It's pretty chill. Um, and also the Haas degree, which is what I'm wearing right now. It's pretty cool. You meet a lot of different people in the Haas degree. If you're a computer science student and gunning for top schools, I really recommend looking into those like CS uh, degrees or programs. Michigan offers one. UT Austin, Penn M&T is like the older program of the Berkeley MET. NYU BME, I think it's called, is also a pretty good program. Um, so I think in the competitive landscape of computer science, a tip I heard actually from one of my friends at MET, or two of them, they both work at OpenAI. They were saying that the reason that they think they got into OpenAI is not only because of their technical rigor, but because they're fun to talk to. They have good personalities. And, some people might call a business degree fluff, but I feel like at a top institution, you can argue that it really brings a good amount of value because you're going to need to socialize in like a business aspect. Like social cues and all that is extremely important, especially in the tech world, because you might be like a good engineer, but you also might be annoying, right? So I think it's important to really focus on just this, just social aspects along with like technical ability. So that's also something that they told me, and I was, thinking about, and it's pretty true. I would say. Um, for academics, I say, I mean, if you come from like a private school or like a really rigorous high school, it shouldn't be too bad adjusting. But my high school wasn't that strong in terms of academics compared to Berkeley Eeks, so it was really like a reality check. Another thing, like midterms are curved, so even if you get cooked, like you still be okay. Uh, we had like a midterm two for my linear algebra class, and the mean was a 50. I got a 75, and that counts as a A, you know. But um, you'll definitely like you'll realize that you might not be able to get a 4.0, and especially if you're in computer science, that's low-key fine, unless you want to place into quant. But I think that is something to consider. Another thing to consider is what you really want to do for work, because I know some like engineers at like Amazon that say it's really hard and it might not have been what you expected, right? So you really got to think like, do I have a passion for what I want to do? Because also another thing about college is like um, you're not forced to kind of pigeonhole into one sort of career, because that's kind of how I felt too. When I was thinking of where to go, I was like, well, if I got two degrees at the same time, I could, be a banker. Worst case scenario. But I think it's really something to consider and keep your options open. Because like right now, I still don't know what I want to do. I like the idea of being a SWE. I think being a PM is cool. I'd like to work in finance. Private equity sounds really interesting, especially like a tech side private equity firm or venture capital. Work in a startup. I'm doing one right now, like every other Berkeley kid. But I think college really gives you the opportunity to sort of consider other things, because I didn't know like a majority of these careers existed until I actually entered college. Um, so yeah, another thing to consider is like the area of your college. Um, a big thing for me between Yale and Berkeley was that Yale is kind of like in the middle of nowhere, so you're gonna be on campus like your majority of your time, unless you take the hour out to New York. But for Berkeley, I love San Francisco. I visited when I was little, and I was like, wow, this place is really cool. And it was as cool as I remembered. I go as much as I can. I go to a lot of concerts. I saw Cardi live. That was pretty cool in the Chase Center. And he played location. But I think to also consider, the fun aspect of the college you're going to, because college is such a developmental time in your life that you really can't just see it as some sort of transactional, like I need to go to the best school with the best major to get the best job. You also need to grow as a person so you can lead a more fulfilling life when you pursue your career, because you really do have all your life to work. So I think taking that time to explore during college is something that's really important. And that's something that I've been kind of making a point to do. I've been doing things that I have not really done in high school. Um, so I think stepping outside of your box is something to really consider. I mean, even when you submit your college apps, you really have nothing to do. So I think even just to like mitigate that stress, because I was also there at one point. After January 5th, when the Ivies are done, you're kind of just sitting until February if you get into Berkeley early, or March if you don't get into the UCs early, or any of the other schools. But I really think that you should have some fun. And this is coming from someone that like I skipped on my football game senior year so I could study more for Calc BC because I wanted to get a five. And although it did pay off, sometimes I look back and like I could have taken a day off or two to have a little fun. So I guess if you really are taking that sacrifice to sort of get your chances the highest for getting into a good school, I'd say take some time off during the spring. And another thing comes up is like when you consider the college you're going to, you also have to consider like what type of person you are. How much grit do you really have? Um, and it's a fact that some people have a higher sort of capacity of work than others. So for me, my senior year, I took a lot of sacrifices, right, to really try to get into the best school I can. I was a very average applicant up until like the end of junior year, and I kind of realized like, I gotta get my act together if I really want to get into these top schools. And I think something I recommend is to apply to those summer programs because the people you'll meet is phenomenal, right? You will meet people that have done, you know, their own startups already. They've done research. Like one of my friends, his name was I forgot his name, but he was in mites and he was in my class and he was doing like research at some New York City lab. I was like, wow, that's just crazy, right? Like I didn't even know you could do that as a high schooler. Um, and these people, like, I felt a little FOMO, a little like imposter syndrome. I'm like, these guys are just, like, I just wanted to go to UCSD and do CS. But these guys were like, oh, so would you guys pick MIT or Harvard, or would you pick MIT or Stanford? And I was curious, like, oh, like, what do you guys see in these schools? Like, why do you want to go to these schools? And they told me all the opportunities you get and the people you meet. And, going through college, it is really true that it's a big difference the people you meet from top institutions to, I guess, not as competitive institutions. Because if you're really ambitious, right, if you have that grit, like, you're like, people think you're crazy, you'll be normal wherever you go, right? Because I don't feel that out of place at Berkeley, or especially in my program. Because, taking 5 classes and 3 technicals and studying for 10 hours in one day is the norm. And also something to consider is like you don't want to limit yourself if you are that person that has that kind of grit. Because I also consider like going to Yale, getting that GPA cushion, um, the degree would relatively be easier. Um, and I would just work in like a hedge fund or something, or you know I'm not saying that's easy, but I feel like the cushion you get from like a private institution like an Ivy um, is something that's really desirable. And I actually saw this comment from this guy. Like, I asked on some Facebook forum, like, what I should do. And he was like, well, my son had a lot of work in high school, and he was choosing between Princeton and Yale for computer science, and ended up picking Yale because it'd be a little more lax in Princeton because Princeton is extremely rigorous. And there's always two sides to an argument, but I really believe in the fact that, like, you don't want to limit yourself, right? Because what if that kid went to Princeton instead of Yale? Would he be doing better? Would he have a better, internship offer in the summer? Um, so I really think like if you are truly someone of that sort of ambition, to really consider your options in that kind of lens. Um, and also, I guess if you're like an incoming junior or someone that's not exactly applying to colleges yet, but kind of considering like if you want to put the time in, uh, like the rule of thumb is you really have to put in a lot of sacrifice, and you also have to not be afraid to fail. So for me, I my method of doing it was just attending a lot of random programs in my city. So I attended like youth corps, and I was, I'm like an introvert at heart, right? So it was really scary to like go and speak in front of a judge. And I did pretty bad my first time. I kept stuttering, I was sweating, I kept looking down on my paper. Um, but I didn't give up. Yeah, I kept it pushing, and in the end, I was a pretty good youth attorney, and my public speaking skills got substantially better. And now I have the confidence to come and sit in front of a camera and talk about college, right? Um, so I really think to try everything you can. Um, and not everything has to be relevant to your major. Because if you only do CS stuff, you're a one-dimensional person, right? You have to kind of have some breadth, in your activities. So whether it be youth corps, playing a sport, um, things like that, I think is real. It's as important as excelling in your field of interest, because these admission readers know that like there's a high chance that you will switch, your major. You might come in as wanting to do CS, and you come out, trying to be a law student. Um, so I really think that it's important to sort of see high school as not some sort of like do everything related to your major, but what really it is intended to be is just another point of exploration. And since we're still so young, there's really no harm, no foul. And that's actually another thing I learned. The best piece of advice I got um, was from this graduate from MET, or not grad. It was like a dropout. But he's like YC backed and all that, and it's like you really want to use your youth to your advantage, right? You kind of want to ask dumb questions because they're not gonna think you're dumb. You're just you're just the young kid that really is interested. So for me, I use my MET brand name to just message random people on LinkedIn, and maybe in this case, my startup or they work a job that I want to work, and I'm like, hey, my name is Carlos. I'm in the MET program. I really like your background, and I would love to hear about your story. How did you get there, right? So you really have nothing to lose, just talking to people that you think are interesting, right? Um, and I think college is a great place to do that. And if you're deciding from if you're a tech person, I highly recommend coming to the Bay Area. Unless you get into MIT, that's a pretty good school. But yeah, I feel like those are some important things that I learned during college.